Mr. Samuel Mashaye joins us now, public affairs analyst and chairman editorial board of Nation Newspapers. Thank you for coming on today.
It's my pleasure.
Well, you had said previously that the issue is just misplaced. They seem to be focusing on the wrong things. You talked about subsidizing corruption. You still maintain that stance?
Absolutely. It is corruption subsidy. I mean, we have to get the language right. Because, you see, there's this literary theorist who talked about the rhetoric of discourse, T.S. Eliot. He said sometimes the language we employ in a debate sometimes takes the question to the wrong place, and then we misplace the actual point that we're supposed to emphasize. What is going on is not fuel subsidy per se, it is corruption subsidy. And the sooner we know that, and the sooner we understand that that is the language that we should focus on in discussing this matter, the better for our understanding and tackling of the issue.
Corruption subsidy, are you saying the corruption is being subsidized?
Exactly.
How?
Yes. So let me give you an example. We hear every time, even the former speaker, the former guest, referred to it. When they talk about the importation of fuel, and you have these marketers bringing fuel to the country. Take for instance, they bring 40 million metric tons of fuel, and then you report 40 million tons of fuel, you have subsidy on 40 million tons of fuel, you discharge 5 million tons of fuel, you take the balance of 35 million tons of fuel, you take it to the international market and sell it. You have subsidized 35 million tons of fuel that will not be seen in this country, will not be consumed. Yet the money has gone to the pockets of some few people. Now that is one aspect of it. The other thing is that they said that we spent 1.3. Now it's going to 1.4, 1.45, 1.5 trillion, naira in the past year. Before that year, it was about 200, 250 billion. The year before that, it was the same amount. How did this skyrocket? How many cars did you bring into this country? How much fuel do we consume? Now this happened just about the time that the PPPRA lost its independence to the Minister of Petroleum.
Really? How?
Yes, PPPRA was independent until about October, November last year. So what that means is that the PPPRA is the one that determines, how much you get, and all the details. They are the ones, it is between the PPPRA and the Ministry of Petroleum that we should investigate to know how much fuel comes into this country. How are they paid?
So is that to say that
is why I said
is not being done now?
Nobody has done the investigation. What is going on is that they want to move money from one place to the other. They are robbing Peter and are trying to pay Paul. And Paul is the one robbing Peter and paying himself. That is what is going on. It's an act of complete scum in the country right now. And unless we address it, we are going to have a lot of suffering coming. The point in Nigeria is that we are used to suffering and we keep absorbing suffering. You see, we have to face the facts.
But Mr. Omatseye, how can we address this? Because the picture you just painted is a very, very gloomy one, and if you don't have a discerning vision, you really can't even understand the way you just painted it. But how can we get out of this? Because I mean, it looks like a vicious cycle.
We need political will. We need the National Assembly to take on the executive branch of government and hold them accountable for whatever is going on. They talk of a cabal.
When talking about the figures that you've just quoted now, 240 billion or so last year spent on subsidy, and 1.3
where did the money go
trillion this year.
Yeah.
Remember that was raised by a member of the National Assembly. Senator Saraki raised that particular point, and because of that, that probe panel into the management of fuel subsidies started. Are you hopeful on the results of that, of what it might emerge? So far so good. They've held open hearings. A lot of revelations have emerged. Are you hopeful that there will be a concrete report at the end of the hearing?
I've lived in this country, and I've pursued analysis in this country for so long that I'm not one to say I'm hopeful about anything. Let me put it this way in an irony. I'm hopeful after the fact. How about that? Because there's somebody who said in the US the other day, he said, no matter how cynical I get, I can never catch up. You know, things get so bad that even if I wish for the worst, the result that comes out is even worse than I thought.
People.
But I expect. But let us just sit on the sideline and hope that they will get this.
That probe panel will even start in the very first place.
Yes.
Shouldn't we give them kudos for that? Because I mean, a host of things have emerged.
Yes.
A host of things have emerged. I mean, enough for Nigerians to be able to act on.
Yes.
I mean, for instance, now, you know, we're talking about a cabal, we're talking about a faceless cabal, and we're talking about people who benefited illegally. You know, it emerged the construction companies who had no business importing fuel.
Exactly.
Were importing
Has anybody investigated the construction?
At least we can use that basis. We did not know that before.
No. The other question is, what did they spend the 1.3 trillion on between last year and this year?
Isn't that what the probe panel is trying to find out?
Yes, let us find that out first before you talk about removing subsidy on corruption. So if we know that, then we know that it's not fuel subsidy. By the time you get all of this scum, this corruption out of it, you discover that the fuel subsidy is so little that it's not worth even removing.
But even the 240 billion, I mean, that we seem comfortable.
Do you think the 240 billion is still 240 billion?
Even the 240,
it was still corruption.
No, because the 240 billion we seemed comfortable with. Yes. It seems the federal government can no longer continue with that amount.
That amount is even too high.
You're going to say something about
what we need is a forensic audit. These people come with bill of lading. They cannot forge.
It brings us to what you were about saying. You were about saying something about the cabal.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
they said they mentioned the cabal. Who is the cabal? If you probably very well, it's the political elite. They came out with a list of marketers. Who did these marketers report to? They won't say anything. You remember when they came out with the list? The marketers didn't say anything. Because everybody's hand is tied. You were in it, I was in it, but because you have the greater power, I say you are the one that did it, you can't say anything because if I say something, you blacklist me. So they kept quiet.
You mean they can't even talk, even if
they can't even talk?
What if they
because some of them reporters talk to some of them. It's not everything that journalists know that they say. Delegawa used to say it the other in those days, that if we say everything we know in the media, the country will blow up.
Are we saying that the regulation all by itself is not a good idea?
The word deregulation again is fraud. What are you deregulating? Did you not deregulate diesel or kerosene?
Yeah, but
has it gotten better?
No, but just as we've seen now, the attempt we've seen on the part of government to engage the citizenry to talk about this.
Yes.
I mean, compared to previous times where you could have it about 9 times.
Talk about it. Talking about it is a way of
with a view to bring in some action.
Yes, talking about it is a way of trying to show that I was talking to you. They have already made up their mind. You know, it's just like when Babangida came with the IMF debate. If you remember, everybody debated, they spent money, newspaper columns, blah 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 blah. It was an interesting affair, but at the end of it, IMF did what IMF wanted to do, and that is part of the consequence you are suffering today.
Is it that you see nothing good in this?
I see nothing good in it. Tell me one thing good in it, and I will clap. I was okay.
You're not. I mean, for instance, now they have said that if we remove subsidy,
yes,
people will be encouraged to come and invest here and build refineries,
yes,
which will in turn generate jobs,
yes,
which will in turn help our economy grow.
What stops them from when you go through the situation as it is and you prune down the corruption?